Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. So today's video is about corporate emails and it is the second video in the lockdown learning series of videos. In today's video, I'm going to talk about 5 commonly misused words in corporate emails and how to use them correctly. As always, I'd like to begin by clarifying my intention. The words I talk about here are in no way incorrect, or I do not discourage you from using these words. Instead, I'd like you to know how to use these words correctly. To make my point even more clear, I'd like you to think of words that you can use to describe a great meal. I'm sure that there are many words that come to your mind, but let's look at these two words: the word sumptuous and the word appetizing. Now, both these words have a very positive meaning and can be used to describe a great meal, but let's look at the difference between what they mean. For example, sumptuous is something that is lavish or grand, whereas appetizing means something that was tasty or something that appealed to your taste buds. Think of how different the meaning of these words are. So, choosing the correct words can make all the difference. And hence, it's important to choose the right words. With that said, let's begin with word number 1, which is aforementioned. Aforementioned is something or some person that has been previously described or mentioned. I'm going to share with you 2 examples of how I've seen these words being used, and I'm also going to follow it up with 2 examples of how to use the words correctly. Example number 1: I studied the quarterly sales report today. The aforementioned report needs the following changes. Now, at first glance, this might seem like correct use of the word, but I want you to think of the 2 statements by dropping the word aforementioned. So the statements would sound like this. I studied the quarterly sales report today. The report needs the following changes. Now you see here, by dropping the word aforementioned, nothing really changed. The meaning of the statements remains the same, which means the use of the word aforementioned here is redundant. Let's look at example number 2. The aforementioned list of employees also has details about their current location. And the list of employees that you're talking about actually appears after the statement. Now, we need to be really careful while using this word. If you do want to use the word aforementioned, please ensure that the list or the items that you're talking about are mentioned before you make the statement. Let's talk about 2 examples of how this word can be used correctly. Example number 1. In spite of the aforementioned bugs, the app has a great rating on Google Play. The assumption here is that the list of bugs was already sent or already mentioned earlier in this email, or maybe during the series of emails during the same conversation. Example number 2. All tasks related to the aforementioned projects will be on hold till the end of the month. Again, the assumption here is that these projects that you're talking about have been mentioned earlier throughout the exchange of emails that you've had. Word number 2, due diligence. Now, this word has its roots in the legal industry. Due diligence is actually a comprehensive appraisal of a business, usually done by a prospective buyer, while trying to understand your potential or market value and to evaluate your assets and liabilities. Now, it's clear from this that this is definitely a legal term used to describe a process completed by a lawyer. Now, I have seen these words used in many ways in the corporate world, but here are 2 examples. Number 1, further due diligence is required to find the root cause of this event. Now, here it seems like there is something that happened and you tried to find the root cause of that, which is actually analysis. So using the word due diligence here is incorrect. Example number 2. After thorough due diligence, we concluded that we need to have 3 levels of encryption. Now here it seems like you were trying to create a product and decide the level of security. And for something like this, I would rather call it a feasibility study. which means again, the term due diligence is used incorrectly here. Here are two examples of how you could use the term correctly. Example number one. The terms of the contract were changed after conducting thorough due diligence of Stark Industries. Now, there's an organization that we're talking about here for which the actual legal due diligence process was conducted, and the terms of the contract were changed based on the outcome. So, that is indeed correct usage of the word due diligence. Example number two. The initial due diligence by our lawyers suggests that a merger may lead to loss of revenue for the first 6 months. Once again, here there is a lawyer involved and a legal due diligence process was performed, which is why it's okay to use the word due diligence. Word number three, discrepancy. A discrepancy is an illogical or surprising difference or dissimilarity between two objects that indeed should be similar. Stress on the words should be similar here. Example number one here is a very common example of how the word discrepancy is used in emails. There is a discrepancy in my attendance for the 15th of January. Now, from this example, it seems like the person writing is trying to point out a mistake. So, the word discrepancy is not the same as mistake. One, because you're not comparing it with any other data. And second is because you were not expecting any similar outcome. Example number two, the discrepancy in the cost of a Prime membership versus the regular membership was huge. Now here, although you're comparing two things, let's understand why this is incorrect. The Prime membership and regular membership usually would not cost the same, which is why it is incorrect to use the word discrepancy. Here are two examples of how to use the word correctly. Example number one, a discrepancy in the financial reports submitted by both companies led to extensive audits. The assumption here is that both the companies were performing financial analysis of the same aspects. Example number two, discrepancies between the product demonstrated and what was delivered were noted and conveyed to the release management team. Once again, something that was demonstrated to the customer versus something that was delivered needs to be the same, which is why the use of the word discrepancy is appropriate. Word number four, bifurcate. Bifurcate means to divide into two branches of forks. The word originated from rivers dividing themselves into two, which is why the term forks. Here are two examples of how I have seen the word bifurcate being used. Example number one, the data collected from the customer surveys is bifurcated as positive, negative, and neutral. Now, there are three parts of the data, which is why the term bifurcated is incorrect. Example number two, we bifurcated the process into 4 steps for better clarity. Now, here it is clear that the process was actually divided into 4 smaller steps, and that's why the use of the word bifurcate is incorrect, as there were 4 steps in the process. Here are two examples of how to use the word correctly. Example number one, the group of people participating in the study were bifurcated as smokers and non-smokers. Now, because there are just 2 divisions here, it's okay to use the word bifurcated. If your study had people divided as smokers, non-smokers, and prior smokers, you would then not use the word bifurcated. Example number 2. The customer data received from sales was bifurcated as Indian clients and international clients. Once again, since the data was divided into 2 parts, it's all right to use the word bifurcated. That brings us to the last word, which is the word update. Now, this one might surprise you. It's a fairly common word. Update means to make something more modern or up to date. I'm sharing with you 2 examples of how the term is used very often in corporate emails. Example number 1, please update me on the status of the certification project. Now, the problem with this statement is the words update me. because you're asking someone to share updates with you. Example number 2. Are there any updates on the points discussed during the team meeting? This one also might seem appropriate, but I'm going to show you a better way to ask for updates on something. Let's look at the correct use of the word update. Example number 1 is where you ask someone to update you about something. For example, you could say, please share with me any new developments since we last spoke, instead of saying, please update me on the new developments. Or you could say, please let me know about the progress with the certification project. Now, both of these are great ways to ask for updates or to ask someone to keep you in the loop. Example number 2 is the actual use of the word update to update something. For example, please update the document to reflect all the points discussed in the meeting. So here you're using the term update to update something versus update someone. With that, we come to the end of today's video, and stay tuned for more videos in the Lockdown Learning series. If you've learned something new today, please like this video and share it with someone. Thank you.